I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, the issue is the presidential race comes to California. We're one-on-one with Republican candidate Nikki Haley as she battles both Trump and Biden. Plus, Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Christina Pascucci is here to talk about her fight with California's election officials and how she's different than the rest. The issue is starts right now.
Broadcasting across California, you're watching The Issue Is.
And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, Nikki Haley said that the White House is, quote, not a taxpayer-funded nursing home. She's banking on voters turning the page to a new generation away from Trump and Biden. Haley bringing her campaign to the heart of Hollywood this week, raising big money in Southern California and Northern California. She also stopped by Costa Mesa, where we caught up with her at the Playa Mesa restaurant for an exclusive interview. Governor Nikki Haley, welcome to The Issue Is for the first time.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
People are voting now in California, which is kind of wild, but it sort of feels like the beginning of this campaign, and there's still a lot of people in this state that don't know you that well. So maybe this is an opportunity to give an introduction to the people of California, a little bit about your story and about why you decided to run for president. You know,
born and raised in rural South Carolina, was an accountant, went on and defeated the longest serving legislator in a primary when I ran for the State House, and really fought for transparency, ethics reform, all of those things. Ended up running for governor as a Tea Party candidate against a lieutenant governor, attorney general, very popular congressman, and a state senator. We won that, ran 2 terms, and then was appointed ambassador to the UN in the Trump administration. And bottom line is, I think we need an accountant in the White House. I know what it's like to run a government and clean it up. As governor, we did that. We went from 11% unemployment to 4%. We passed voter ID, tort reform, pension reform, the toughest illegal immigration law in the country, and then went on to the UN. And I dealt with Russia, China, and Iran every day. This is a time where, you know, I think we need someone who knows domestic policy. We need someone who knows foreign policy, but we also need someone who knows fiscal policy, because we look at our debt and we look at our economy and we know something's got to give.
You know, the challenging part of this race is you're running against somebody who has 100% name ID, right? And so that's hard. We see in some of the polls recently, you're down 40% in this state, 50% nationally. How do you overcome that? What is the specific path where you end up as the Republican nominee?
I mean, look at what we've done. We had 14 candidates in this race. I've defeated a dozen of the fellas. I got 1 left. We were at 2% in Iowa. We finished with 20%. We got 43% New Hampshire. But think about that. The Republican incumbent, Trump, didn't get 43% New Hampshire. Now we're focused on South Carolina, and then it'll be Michigan and Super Tuesday. This is the opportunity for voters to say, do we want more of the same, or do we want something new? More of the same is not just Joe Biden, it's also Donald Trump. You look at the fact that 70% of Americans don't want to see a Trump-Biden rematch. The majority of Americans disapprove of Trump. The majority of Americans disapprove of Biden. Both of those men put us trillions of dollars in debt that our kids are never going to forgive us for. And are we really going to have a country in disarray and a world on fire and have our 2 candidates be in their 80s? Because we need someone who can serve 8 years, strong, disciplined, to get our country back on track. And I think people want a new generational leader.
What is California's role in all that? More delegates than anywhere else in the country?
Yeah, I think California is very important. I mean, you've got citizens who understand that our debt is out of control, that we only have 31% of 8th graders in our country proficient in reading. And what I will tell you is, I voted for Donald Trump twice. I was proud to serve America in his administration. But the truth is, chaos follows him. And we can't have 4 more years of chaos and survive it. And the second thing is, there will be a female president of the United States. It will either be me or it will be Kamala Harris. If Donald Trump is the nominee, Joe Biden wins and gives it to Kamala Harris.
How do you know that? Why do you say that?
Well, I think, first of all, everybody knows Joe Biden's not going to finish 4 more years. I mean, you can look at him. He's changed a lot in the last 2 years.
He would disagree with that, yeah.
No, I think he knows exactly what he's doing. Kamala can't defeat Trump, and they know that. Biden can. And so that's just a reality. But look at the general election polling. In every one of them, Trump is down 7, down 9. On his best day, it's margin of error. He might be up by 2. That's another nail biter of an election. And we've seen what happened in 2018, 2020, 2022. He lost all of them. You look, I'm in every one of those same general election polls. I defeat Biden by up to 17 points. That's bigger than presidency. That's House, Senate, governorships. But think about that. That's a mandate.
But to that point, and that is definitely true. You look at the polls and you are a stronger candidate. But then you look at the voting in some places, and we saw what happened in Nevada this week, where no other candidate, got more support than you. I know that's a state where there aren't any delegates, but does that situation in Nevada hurt a little bit?
No, I mean, Nevada, it's such a scam. They were supposed to have a primary. Trump rigged it so that the GOP chairman, who's been indicted, would go and create a caucus. We knew months ago that we weren't going to spend a day or a dollar in Nevada because it wasn't worth it. And so we didn't even count Nevada. That wasn't anything we were looking at. We knew that was rigged from the start. Our focus is on South Carolina, Michigan, Super Tuesday. So if you look what we did in Iowa and you look what we did in New Hampshire, we're continuing to grow. That's what matters, I think, more than anything else. But look at what happened this week. Here you have Republicans lost a major vote on the border. Republicans lost a major vote on Israel. Donald Trump was found that he will not have immunity in all of these court cases coming up. The RNC chair is fired. All of this chaos is happening around us, and Donald Trump's fingerprints are on every bit of it. We can't continue as the Republican Party to go forward with this chaos. You don't defeat Democrat chaos with Republican chaos, and that's why we've got to see a change.
To that point about the border, because that is a big deal, right? We had a situation where there were a lot of Republican conservatives in the Senate who negotiated a deal, the strongest border deal in decades, which would also give funding to Ukraine, also give funding to Israel, and it's not going anywhere right now. If you were president, would you support that deal? We know it's not perfect, and there never is perfect when you're doing a bipartisan compromise, but on balance, would you support that deal?
Two issues with the border deal. First of all, it was good in that it strengthened asylum charges. The whole catch and release, it strengthened that. That needs to be done. It didn't have remain in Mexico, which is important. You want people to not step foot on U.S. soil to begin with. And it had a 5,000 person threshold. We don't want to see that. The point is you stop it immediately. The problem is, here you have President Trump saying, don't do anything until the election. America's acting like it's September 10th. We better remember what September 12th felt like. It only takes one person. It is irresponsible to say they shouldn't do anything. That bill was not perfect. What they should do is go in a room and figure it out. They should not go home for 2 weeks. They should finish it. Trump needs to stay out of this and let us get a deal that works. But it was incredibly irresponsible on his part to try and stop it. It's incredibly irresponsible for Congress to leave and not get it right in the first place.
And then you also have a situation where Israel funding failed. Ukraine funding may never happen. As somebody who is so focused on foreign policy, what is America's place in the world, and what happens to our national security if Congress doesn't fund Israel, doesn't fund Ukraine, and doesn't fund the border?
Well, first of all, Trump is causing chaos in Congress now, too. We see that, and that's a problem. But you have to understand, this is about preventing wars. I saw every day at the UN, terrorists, thugs, and dictators always tell us what they're going to do. They're amazingly transparent. Hamas said they were going to go into Israel. They did. China said they were going to take Hong Kong. Happened during COVID. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine. We watched it. China says Taiwan is next. We better believe them. Russia said once they take Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. Those are NATO countries that immediately puts America at war. This is about preventing war. It's always been about preventing war. My husband is a combat veteran that served in Afghanistan. He's deployed now. The last thing we want is our men and women to go to war. If we just gave Ukraine the equipment and ammunition they needed to win, that's only 3.5% of our defense budget. We've got to focus on the fact that we've got to stop terrorist activity. We can't let Putin start a war that's going to include all of us. We have to prevent that. But at the same time, I don't think we should give countries cash, because you can't follow it, you can't hold it accountable. I don't think we need troops on the ground. But let's be smart. This is about preventing war. And right now, you've got so much distraction happening in America. And we know when America's distracted, the world is less safe. And that's playing out as we see it.
Can you talk to us about what it means for you to have your husband deployed?
I dropped him off 7 months ago at 4 a.m. And I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they've never been, all in the name of protecting America. They're willing to sacrifice their lives and their families because they still believe in this amazing experiment that is America. So if they're willing to sacrifice for us there, shouldn't we be willing to fight for America here? Because we have a country to save. So while he's there, I'm fighting here. At the end of the day, we're doing this. We don't want our kids to live like this. I don't want anyone's kids to live like this. We can't continue down this path of anger and division and negativity and not getting things done. We've got to have a new generational leader that leaves the negativity and the baggage behind and focuses on what we're going to do to make America strong again.
You know, the only Trump you've debated so far was the fake Trump on SNL.
Yeah, I've been trying to get him to debate me and he refuses to do it.
Have you heard from them after that offer on national TV? Any progress on that?
On a debate?
Yeah.
I mean, Trump won't do it. We've said we want him to debate right away. And think about what that says. The fact that he didn't get 43% of the vote in New Hampshire. He only got 1.5% of the vote in all of Iowa. And he's saying, he says anybody that supports me will be barred permanently from MAGA. If you're running for president, this is about addition. It's not about pushing people out and saying they can't be in your club. Then he goes and pushes the RNC to name him the presumptive nominee. We don't do coronations in America. We need 48 states and other territories to vote. That's been the issue from the very beginning. But think about, our disclosures came out as well. He spent $50 million in campaign donations on his personal court cases. He has said he's going to spend more time in a courtroom than he will campaigning for president. Is that really what we want going forward? Because the world is on fire and our country's in disarray, and we can't have that. All he has done is talked about revenge and how he's a victim. He's never once talked about the American people. That should send a chill up everyone's spine.
All that being said, is he still better than Joe Biden?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we know that we don't want to have a President Kamala Harris. The problem is he can't win. In any of these general election polls, he can't win, and that's without all these court cases decided yet.
You're saying Trump can't win?
Trump can't win.
Yeah, but
and
still,
so
would you vote for him over Biden?
I will always vote for the Republican nominee over Biden.
Back to the SNL thing. How did that happen? Did you reach out to them? Did they reach out to you? And did you hang with J-Lo backstage?
So there will be a time and place I talk about that,
Yeah.
but it's not going to happen during this election.
Was it fun though?
It was a great time. They were very kind to us. It was just, we couldn't have asked for a better situation. And it's a lot of fun. Look, politics shouldn't be so serious all the time. We have to lighten up. We have to understand that we shouldn't live, breathe, and eat politics all the time. And so, yeah, it was good, but it was also making a point. Trump needs to debate me.
Up next, Haley plays personal issues and reflects on how her mom shaped her worldview.
We do something on our show called Personal Issues, which is 30-second rapid-fire questions to get to know your personal favorites away from politics, to show some places where we can get along, okay?
Yeah, okay.
So here we go. What is your favorite TV show?
Ooh, Yellowstone.
Okay, good answer. Most Republicans say that.
It's a great show.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie, Shawshank Redemption.
Great choice. Favorite musician or band?
Joan Jett.
Nice. Who is your all-time favorite athlete?
Ooh. So I love Clemson football, obsessed with Clemson football. Favorite athlete. And I loved tennis. I mean, growing up it was Chris Everett, because I love tennis. Now I love Clemson football, so Coach Dabo is like a favorite of mine and any of the players on the Clemson team, but yeah.
Who is your role model?
My role model, it has always been my mom.
Why is that?
My parents come from India, and she was named one of the first female judges in India. She was a lawyer, and because of the time, she couldn't sit on the bench. It didn't happen. And to see that they left everything 50 years ago to come to America with $8 in their pocket because they wanted a better life for their family. For her to see me become governor, and for her to see me be UN ambassador, and for her to see me run for president, I learned my toughness from her. I learned my grace from my dad. But aside from her, Margaret Thatcher is also an amazing icon, I
What's
think,
the most important lesson your mom has taught you?
that don't ever let what makes you different slow you down. It's always, she would always say, your job is not to show people how you're different, your job is to show them how you're similar. And I think that lesson, when I would get teased on the playground, followed me throughout my life, because when you first have an issue, if you talk about what we have in common first, people let their guard down, and then you can actually solve the problem going forward.
Well, we both like Yellowstone.
Yes, definitely.
Like
one of the best shows on TV.
I'm a USC football fan, the wrong USC, University of Southern California.
Yes.
But it's so great to have you in California.
Thank you
you so much. And
Let's
really
go
appreciate
vote.
It.
Go to NikkiHaley.com. This is a chance to get our country straight. I hope all your listeners will do that.
Thank you very much.
Take
Thank
care.
you very much.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Up next, Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Christina Pascucci on her visit to the border and more. You're watching The Issue Is. Ballots go out to all voters in California this week. When you get yours, it will likely not identify U.S. Senate candidate Christina Pascucci as a local TV journalist, but as no ballot designation. California Secretary of State Shirley Weber says she screwed up due to a clerical error by a staffer and is now fixing it on online versions, but not for the pre-printed paper versions. With us now to discuss that and more is Christina Pascucci, who used to work here as an anchor and reporter and then left us to run for the U.S. Senate as a Democrat. Good to see you, Christina. Welcome back.
You. Thanks for having me.
So what is the latest on this ballot mess?
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, just to put it into perspective for people, if you have your designation on the ballot, local television journalist versus not, we did polling on that and my numbers cut in half. More than anything, it just talks to the integrity of our free and fair elections. The Secretary of State is tasked with making sure that happens. She acknowledged the mistake, that's step one, but the damage to my campaign, we can't even begin to quantify that.
Let's talk about the big issue that the Senate was talking about this week and then not talking about, which is the border. I know you've been there recently. There was this big bipartisan bill that had been negotiated, which would toughen the border laws, toughen the asylum laws, put more money towards Border Patrol, and also fund Ukraine and Israel. And it went down in kind of spectacular fashion. Would you have supported that bill?
I think it's a start, for sure. There's such a crisis at the border. Something needs to be done. Did it have everything I would want, or were there things that maybe I wouldn't want? Sure. I think it didn't address the beginning of the migration crisis, for example, which is such an important piece of border legislation. By the time these migrants get to our border, it's way too late. But I think what I saw more than anything from what happened there was that we're so lost as a nation when we can't agree on anything.
Let's talk about another big headline of the week, which was President Biden not being criminally charged for his role in taking classified documents, but the special counsel suggesting that he's had real bad memory loss. Are you concerned about that? Are you concerned about Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee?
I think 70% of Americans are concerned, at least, who didn't want a rematch between President Biden and former President Trump. And we do need a new generation of leaders. That's another part of my platform. We need a breath of fresh air. And I think people are craving it on every level of government because we see people consistently in their 70s and 80s who are running, and we need term limits. And I greatly respect President Biden. Am I concerned about some of the things I've seen? Yeah. And I think a lot of Americans feel that.
Do you think he should step aside? Do you think he should be the nominee?
I think that perhaps not.
Perhaps he shouldn't be the nominee.
Correct.
Yeah. Because you're concerned about his age. Let's talk a little bit more about you. You're running against three folks who are also older, who have been there for a long time. Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, Barbara Lee, all veteran lawmakers. We know from a style perspective, you've talked a lot about how you'd be different. From a substance perspective.
They voted together 94% of the time. They're essentially the same candidate, and they vote largely along party lines. I think it's so important in order to get the trust of the American people to vote on your conscience and when it doesn't follow your party, perhaps. And so, you know, securing the border is one example of that I'm very passionate about. It's not necessarily the thing that Democrats have been focused on. Some said there wasn't even an issue at the border, and that's something I'm prioritizing in my campaign. Mental health as well. It's personally important to me. I've talked to you about that before, how my own family member dealt with substance abuse and mental health issues. That's what led me to being a journalist, because I want us to understand what it's like to walk in one another's shoes and just to build compassion for our fellow human.
And you're also going to have experience being a mom soon, right?
Yeah.
How are you balancing all this?
I'm so focused on my why. I care so deeply for our future generations. I want her future and her generation's future to be as good as possible. And when I look around right now, they deserve so much better. So I feel focused and resolute and clear in my mission.
You know, we like to play music on this show, and I know you and I agree that the best musical performance of the week was Tracy Chapman and Luke Combs at the Grammys. Why did this moment move you so much?
She is incredible. You see the goodness in her eyes, in her soul, her gratitude of that moment, just this like comeback moment. Everyone loves a good comeback, right? And then you saw Luke when he was looking at her with his deep admiration, and it's a song that brings you back to a simpler time before social media, before the chaos and polarization that we see in America. And it was just one of those moments that hit you hard in the heart.
All right, Christina, thank you. Good luck on the campaign trail. Good luck with the pregnancy.
Thank you.
And we go to break with Tracy Chapman and Luke Combs and Fast Car.
Let's hear it.
Next week on The Issue Is, the senior senator from California, Alex Padilla, will be in our studio. We'll also be joined by the mayor of San Jose, Matt Mahan, who is pushing reforms for California's Proposition 47. We end this week with a tribute to the Black Mamba, the Lakers celebrating Kobe Bryant with a statue outside Crypto.com Arena, which will be the first of 3 statues to go up. Let's take a look. Our love to the Bryant family and Laker Nation. Of course, that's the image when he scored his career-high 81 points. We play I Love LA because this song played after every Laker win. We'll see you next week for more of The Issue Is.